This Week in Startups is brought to you by Tracker. Life is too short to spend looking for your wallet and keys. Save that precious time and get Tracker. Go to thetracker.com, enter promo code TWIST to get 20% off any order. And Squarespace. Start building your website today at squarespace.com. Enter offer code TWIST at checkout to get 10% off.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I am your host, Jason Calacanis, and this is the show where we talk about trends in technology and startup companies. We do the show twice a week, 100 times a year, and it's been really the great work of my life to do this podcast because I get to meet people who are changing the world twice a week, every week for the last 8 years, 750 episodes. And so it is my great privilege to do this podcast with you listening every week. And to keep it free. It's free, and 150,000 people listening to every episode now. It's amazing for me, all the books I've been selling and all the people coming to the incubator and letting me invest in their companies. It's always the same story. I listened to your podcast, and I got to know you, and you seem smart, and let's do business together. Podcasting is a great way to talk about what's going on in the world and get smarter. And today we're going to get smarter about a very specific topic, which is ICOs and cryptocurrencies, from a woman, Kathleen Breitman, who has led as the CEO and co-founder of Tezos, which is Tezos or 0S, depending on if you're in hacker speak or not. You can go visit their website, tezos.com. And Tezos did an initial coin offering, as they call it here in the business. And nobody believed it, but it is now the highest ICO with $232 million raised for a product that does, and first of all, welcome to the program, Kathleen.
Oh, thank you very much.
Congratulations on raising $232 million. That's mind-blowing.
It is a lot of money, yes.
That is a lot of money, a lot of responsibility. What does Tezos do? Is the product launched? What will it do? And then we'll get into ICOs after that. But let's start with the initial, what is Tezos?
Right. So it's hard to explain Tezos without explaining Bitcoin first. Bitcoin's probably the easiest entry point to explain Tezos. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system.
Sure.
It's extremely popular.
Yep. Hit a new record today, over $4,600 today.
Yeah, I saw
while
that.
We're sitting here.
Yes. Good times for Bitcoin last like 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
This is not always the case, of course, but it's riding the wave, highs and lows. It's all part of the volatility game. In any case, so I got into Bitcoin quite a while ago, and Bitcoin's a really interesting project from like a game theoretic and economic perspective and a computer science perspective, and essentially one of the aspects of it that's particularly interesting that's gotten a lot of press is the notion of having a blockchain or a ledger, underneath it that can register things in a global decentralized network. Basically what a blockchain is a record of consensus with a cryptographic audit trail that's maintained and validated by several separate nodes. And ironically, this piece of technology that is optimized for coming to consensus can come to consensus on upgrades to itself. Meaning if Bitcoin wants to have like an upgrade in some fashion or some new functionality, there's no native mechanism to facilitate that.
There's no central owner of Bitcoin. It's an open source distributed project.
Exactly.
So if they want to change the code in Bitcoin, something has to occur. Explain what has to occur.
Well, essentially, you have to have people running the new piece of software. But this is a coordination problem that can't be managed by the blockchain itself. It has to be coordinated like offline, off-chain, if you will.
Right.
And so Tezos looks to remedy this issue inherent in blockchains by facilitating a mechanism for you to come to consensus and actually push out upgrades to the protocol once the majority of token holders come to agreement on what they would like to incorporate in.
And the Bitcoin creators, the anonymous Bitcoin creators, did not anticipate this problem fully. And what's happened since then is we have a bunch of miners in China who are drafting off of the free electricity they have access to, taking over the majority of the mining cycles, which means they have the majority of the voting in Bitcoin, which means that when a change happens, essentially these Chinese miners get to decide. Is that accurate? That's what has been explained to me is happening in the world of Bitcoin. Is it true?
I would say that's more correct than not.
Okay.
There's some subtleties in there, like for example, you could propose a new upgrade, and most of the miners could be in favor of it, but it's not so much voting as much as it is doing what's called like a beauty contest. So miners have a strong incentive to mine on the chain that they think will be most popular. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily voting in the way that you would think about it as making a decision. It's more like following a Schelling point.
Got it.
Whereas with Tezos, we divorce the two notions of having validators on the chain and like actual opinions on where the direction should go.
Got it.
So that's one correction. And
did Bitcoin fork recently? Is that what's occurred now? You have Bitcoin Cash and Classic Bitcoin?
Yes.
Or Classic Bitcoin is another thing, and then there's Bitcoin. Explain to people what's going on, if you can.
I'm actually not. I've been very busy with the Tezos operation, and so I'm probably going to sound like a fool if I try to explain the subtlety. But yes, indeed, there's an alternative version of Bitcoin which purports to solve some of the scalability issues.
Got it.
And that's why people diverged. Under these alleged technical claims. So it remains to be seen like whether or not this is the case, so on and so forth. But yes, Bitcoin Cash, as it's called, is having a bit of a rally. It's really odd because essentially the mechanism that Bitcoin used when it split or forked was kind of like a stock split. Like now you have two Bitcoins in your wallet. One is Bitcoin Cash, one is not. And yet typically when stocks or equities do this, you see the value or the share price like halve.
Right, and this time it doubled.
And this time it doubled. Yeah.
So it's crazy. Or went up 50% or something, who knows?
Bitcoin defies all sorts of financial gravities.
Okay, so let's go back to Tezos for a second. So the Bitcoin comes out, everybody's enamored by it. Ethereum comes out, everybody's enamored by it. And then somehow ICOs, coin offerings, onto the Ethereum platform start happening.
Yep.
Is Tezos a competitor to Ethereum and to Bitcoin, or is it built off of Ethereum?
So Tezos is its own fresh implementation of a blockchain.
Okay.
So it's not a derivative of any other chain.
Got it. So we could look at it as an equivalent of Ethereum or Bitcoin.
It's a smart contract platform like Ethereum.
Got it.
Our hope is that like there's enough use cases and like, different trade-offs between designs that there's enough piece of the pie for everyone. But my husband and I like to think about it as like Highlander, like we're all on this journey together. It doesn't really help us to, hurt the other good guys.
Sure.
So we have like a friendly working relationship with a lot of people in the space, but yeah, technically we are also a smart contract platform.
Got it. And so what are people buying actual Bitcoins essentially in Tezos, or are they buying these coins that Ethereum people have been offering? What is the Tezos offering? In terms of what did people buy for $232 million? What did they buy?
Right. So just to explain the mechanism. So we ran a fundraiser starting July 1st. I run a company called Dynamic Ledger Solutions, which is actually producing the IP for the Tezos blockchain.
Got it.
And separately, there was a Swiss foundation, which was established in like late 2016, which actually ran the fundraiser.
Got it.
And so they will run Tezos moving forward, but obviously I as the co-founder of Tezos, had a very big role to play in its foundation.
Got it.
And so the reason that we did what we did and the reason we chose this solution was primarily because we don't have the same distribution algorithm the way Bitcoin does, where like you can participate and receive Bitcoins through mining. And that was the way that most people got their Bitcoins in like 2009 to like 2010.
They would mine them.
Yeah, they would just set up like a chip on their computer, like set up some software on their computer, and they would just run, dedicated.
So you just had all the coins appear day one and sold them.
So basically we lack a proof. We chose to do a proof of stake algorithm for consensus.
What's that?
Essentially, in Bitcoin, you have miners, which can be separate from token holders, validating the chain continuously, and that's how it preserves its integrity in a global distributed network. In proof of stake, the token holders themselves actually assume this responsibility, and so it's very hard to bootstrap this type of network without getting like a large distribution of ownership at first.
Got it.
So in terms of like way to bootstrap the network and get a lot of people involved at the forefront, the fundraiser model, whereby people would make contributions to a Swiss foundation. The Swiss foundation would give a recommendation in what's called the Genesis block, or the first block on the mainnet, based on these contributions, made the most sense, both from bootstrapping, it from a decentralized perspective, and also making sure that there were ample resources to continue development and the protocol's nascence.
So people gave money to a Swiss bank account, or they gave money to a wallet somewhere. I'm curious how the cash moved. Walk us through that.
Yes.
I have $10,000. I want to buy Tezos. I want to be 10,000 of the 232 million. How did I get you the money?
Yeah, so we made essentially what happened was in Switzerland they have a model whereby you can denominate. Rather, if I could back up for a second.
Yeah.
So we chose to go with a Swiss nonprofit. It made a ton of sense for a variety of reasons.
A Swiss nonprofit.
Yes.
Because Switzerland has a place called GAG or something. What is it called?
Oh, Zug?
Zug. Sorry, GAG, Zug. Zug. Z-U-G.
You wouldn't gag if you were in Zug.
You wouldn't gag
it's very
if I was
pretty.
Zug. So there's Zug. And Zug is a region where they have a cryptocurrency experimental shielding, where you can do whatever you want with cryptocurrencies, or you can be very experimental with them.
I would say the way I would phrase it is this: like, there's a Zug is called the Crypto Valley, in Switzerland, and Zug is a canton very close to Zurich. Mm-hmm. And in Switzerland, they have a lot of dynamic governance models, and there's a lot of relationship-based businesses. And the Swiss indeed are quite accommodating towards like new paradigms. For businesses, and so the folks in Zug are like very accommodating towards these types of startups that are with blockchain-based companies. Hence, it's called the Crypto Valley. So Zappo is this massive like Bitcoin company. They're based there, as well as the Ethereum Foundation.
What does it mean to be accommodating? That means they allow you to experiment, they allow you to create stuff? Because the United States government, I think, has been very focused on making sure with the SEC that these things are buttoned up and fit the existing models. So how are the Swiss accommodating in if you can contrast them, say, to the SEC here? Yeah,
I mean, I don't know much about I don't know much about how to deal with the SEC,
right.
But in general, I think that it's very easy for me to get an opinion on what we ought to do in Switzerland, whereas here it's in the U.S. It's a little less obvious how these new models for digital assets are registered and treated from a variety of different standpoints. And in Zug, it's very explicit because they are very responsive to inquiries.
The government there, the regulators.
The regional government.
The regional government is, which is why people are moving there. And this is an existential conundrum, or possibly even threat, to the United States or to London and the UK, places where have been leaders in currency, because if we don't experiment with these new things and we overregulate them, my God, Zug could have a massive lead, and the Swiss could have a massive lead on the United States.
Well, I think there's a tremendous amount of competition for innovation now. And it's not just in Switzerland. I mean, Singapore's also made a lot of efforts to be friendly to fintech companies and things like that.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of really interesting small countries trying to put their hat in the ring. Estonia, for example, is trying to do something with like a digital identity platform.
Who's doing that?
Estonia.
Estonia, yes. Okay.
So like there's all sorts of random things going on, frankly.
People who are not competing on a global stage, or who want to compete better and have an edge, are doing this.
Yeah, the internet is making it very easy for anyone to kind of have a distributed team. And so where your location is domiciled is becoming more competitive.
When we get back from this quick break, I want to know, where did the $232 million go? Do you get that for creating this concept? Don't answer yet, because this is a cliffhanger. Do you get that money? Does it go into some sort of account somewhere? Is it for the foundation? Who gets the $232 million in the Tezos ICO when we get back on This Week in Startups? Okay, everybody, let me tell you about a product I love. It's called Tracker, Trackr, Tracker without the E. Tracker is an amazing little product that you can attach to a keyring, attach to your phone, put in your wallet, anything that you lose regularly. Now, I, Jason Calacanis, am on top of everything I do, and I never lose anything. But once in a while I do. And one of the things I'm always misplacing is keys to cars. And my wife also happens to suffer from this, and we're constantly trying to find who was the last person with the Tesla key. Well, when I got Tracker, I took all of our Tesla key fobs, I took all of the minivans key fob, and I put trackers on them. Now, when something's wrong, I can easily take out an app and bing, beep, beep, boop, find the keys. It makes a nice little beep. It tells me where it is. So when you misplace an item and you have that Tracker Pixel is their new product attached, you can use your smartphone and a 90 decibel alert will help you find it in seconds. I'm thinking about putting these on the remote controls because my daughter now, my 7-year-old, is constantly leaving the remote control in some weird place. She literally took the remote control into the kitchen and put it in a drawer. She put the remote control in her bed. You know, these things happen. So when you misplace an item, you get that 90 decibel alert, and it's got a powerful LED on it, and you can find anything you want in the dark. If you lose your phone, just press a button on the Tracker Pixel, and your phone rings, even if it's on silent. So it's reversible, too. This is amazing. Every Tracker user is part of the largest Tracker crowd locate network in the world, so you can locate your items anywhere, even if it's miles away. The Tracker 30-day money-back guarantee equals that you will have nothing to lose. So here is your call to action. Go to thetracker.com/twist. That's TheTracker.com. Thetracker.com. No E on that second E in Tracker. /twist, and you'll get 20% off any order. They have a money day guarantee, 30-day money day guarantee. Go ahead and get it. Thetracker.com/twist. Thetracker.com/twist. You will love this product. And I have been a fan of this product for a long time, and this new Tracker Pixel is their best product ever. As the years have gone on, they've made their products better and better, and Tracker Pixel is, I think, the holy grail of losing items. It works perfectly. I love it. It is great. It's been 8 years since they started working on this problem, and I got to tell you right now, I think that they have solved it effortlessly. It's so easy to set up. I set it up in literally seconds. I was so impressed. To the team over at Tracker, congratulations. You have figured it out. I know it was a long, arduous trail to figure out how to make all of us have instant recall of where we left our car keys, our wallet, and all these things. It is so delightful to see a startup figure it out, and the Tracker Pixel is delightful. So just from me to you, the team over at Tracker, I just want to say congratulations. I know you've been working on it for a long time, and I am really genuinely impressed with this latest version. Tracker Pixel is amazing. Thetracker.com/twist, thetracker.com/twist, thetracker.com/twist. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and my guest today is Kathleen Breitman, and she is the CEO and co-founder of Tezos. You can see Tezos at tezos.com, and they have run the largest ICO in history for $232 million. Was raised in July for 2 weeks. There was no cap on it, and it's a contemporary of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it uses smart contracts to allow for the updating of the software in a more intelligent manner, which makes it more dynamic as a platform. Did I describe it correctly?
Well, we don't use smart contracts to do the upgrades. The upgrade part is actually native to the blockchain, but that's directionally very close. So.
Okay, so the updating of the software is the key innovation here, and some number of people thought this is a brilliant idea. I want to buy, should I call them coins or tokens, or?
I call them tokens.
Tokens.
Yeah.
Which would be the equivalent of a Bitcoin, or Ethereum calls them Ether.
Yep.
So they bought the tokens. $232 million was raised. And when we left our hero, that's you, Kathleen, before the break, I was wondering, where did the $232 million go? Because I'm an investor. When we give $2 million or $200,000 or $232 million for a company, goes into the company then deploys it to increase the product's value in the world and hopefully raise the stock price. So people bought these coins at, how many coins were issued, or how many of the tokens were issued rather, for $232 million?
I forget what the final rally calls. We also gave out tokens to some of the contractors and things like that.
Got it. What about it 1-to-1? Is it worth $1 each one? Or are they worth $100 each or a penny each?
So basically the the way that we set the rate, it was denominated in Bitcoin. So it was 5,000 tokens per Bitcoin.
Got it.
And of course, like, Bitcoin is, as we mentioned earlier, quite volatile.
Got it.
And so it depended on when you contributed,
Got it.
how much each thing, was
All right.
worth.
So question one, where is the money?
Yeah. So the fundraiser was basically you would make contributions to the Swiss nonprofit. The Swiss nonprofit has a mandate to promote and hone the Tezos blockchain, the public Tezos blockchain, and so all the resources are being reallocated into that. Well, rather, 91.5% of the funds are going towards that.
91% of the funds are going towards that.
Yes,
Great.
going towards like research and development, marketing, doing all sorts of fun stuff.
So a nonprofit got the money. That nonprofit then is committed to deploying that money to make this a great currency that people will use in the world. So you're going to hire for $200 million. If you pay people $150,000 a year, you could hire, 20 people forever for the next 60 years or 200 people for the next 6 years, whatever it is.
Yep.
So you're going to go on a hiring spree to hire developers and whatever, community outreach people or support people. Is that right?
So to be clear, I'm not a trustee of the foundation. It's actually the responsibility of the trustees to kind of deploy this capital
Who are the
effectively.
trustees of the foundation?
There's 3 of them. One of them is there's Guido, there's Johan, and there's Diego.
Okay.
And those are some great guys.
They're from Switzerland, or are they bankers, or who are they?
So Johan's actually the founder of the Crypto Valley in Zug. So
Okay.
this was like his baby for the last few years. So he's very much ingrained in the ecosystem there. Guido is also based in Zug. He's a businessman, and he basically has like a very administrative function, which is very helpful. Lots of relationships within Zug as well.
Yeah.
And Diego is sort of like he's an entrepreneur, and he travels often. I think he's in Asia right now.
Got it.
And he runs a combinatorial optimization startup.
So these are donations, in a way, to a nonprofit.
Yeah, contributions. Yeah, that's
Well, what's the difference between a contribution and a donation? Is it a...
contribution sounds nicer.
Oh, sounds nice.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so people contributed to a nonprofit, which people would look at as a donation, which means it could be tax-free. I don't know. Is it a...
Best to consult your
Who knows?
accountant.
Yeah, that would be a good way to say it, because I don't know how it works to donate to a Swiss nonprofit. But these coins, are the coins trading now?
No, so
When do the tokens trade?
There's a futures exchange, so that tries to price what they think the tokens will be worth upon launch. Though that's, historically, it's not been a very scientific practice in these communities. So there's no marketplace for it quite yet.
Okay.
But we hope to be launched in December or so.
Okay, so in a very short period of time, you will have a marketplace trading the Tezos. Do you call it a Tezos?
I call it XTZ.
XTZ, okay.
Yeah.
We'll be trading XTZ. And people will be able to use it for all kinds of other purposes. Those 3 people are going to hire people to maintain this infrastructure.
Yes.
So unlike Bitcoin, which has very little central authority, here Tezos has a central authority, this nonprofit that's going to make sure that Tezos doesn't implode.
So that's, the foundation has a mandate that's very specific to Tezos broadly construed, but it doesn't have, so in computer science, like centralization actually means like having special rights within the protocol. The foundation doesn't necessarily have anything explicit like that. It's not like it's the president of Tezos or something like that. It's very much there to help and facilitate the ecosystem.
Got it. So what will that money be spent on?
We can have a world-class development team now. I think our team is already world-class, but now we can, of course, add more.
You could pay them.
We were paying them before too, but yes, they can certainly benefit from a lot of this. We can do a lot of research and development. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on right now. Universities like Cornell, Technion, so on and so forth, that are directly applicable to improving the protocol and its functionality.
Got it.
So we can help people out with those efforts. We just announced in our August update that we're going to be dedicating around $50 million in venture capital to, helping grow the ecosystem by partnering.
Oh, so you're going to reinvest the money in startups from the foundation?
We think that it makes sense to do some co-investment structures just to get
that's a great idea.
developers bootstrapping on the ecosystem. Yeah.
So if somebody had an idea, I want to make something for Tezos, you might actually invest in it from the Swiss foundation.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, wow, that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, so about 25% will be earmarked for that. Now, do people vote on that, or those three God Kings just pick how they're going to spend the money?
Yeah, they'd pick how they want to spend the money.
Got it.
The idea is that, like, though I think the foundation ought to query and say, like, hey, do you guys like this idea? Or, if it's a very dramatic and provocative change. But by and large, the Swiss Foundation was meant to operate as a separate entity from the rest of the protocol. And I think it should be used for things like marketing services and basically things where a blockchain can't contract with a marketing firm, right?
Got it.
So touching that surface area.
Okay, so now here comes the big question. I think I understand it to date. The people who do the coin offering get 10% of the offering, which I think nobody ever anticipated would be this big. You certainly didn't anticipate $232 million, did you?
Oh, good God, no.
What did you anticipate being in all?
Well,
when you said we're going to do this, when you first got it all together and released it, what was your ballpark, you thought? Range?
So bear in mind that a lot of things changed with the price of Bitcoin going up so high, because people feel like they need to diversify a bit once their holdings grow quite large, because they get very afraid that it's going to disappear like that.
Right.
And so the price of Bitcoin basically skyrocketing over the last 6 to 8 months has really changed a lot of the conversations. But I found an email in my inbox today when I was like looking through my account, and I was pitching someone on like, please, like, will you take my meeting with me? Like, I'll be so lucky if I get $20 million, raised for Tezos. Like, that would be so great because then we could give the programmers a bonus.
Right, exactly.
It was just so pathetic.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't see any of this
So
coming.
it went 10x because in a way, Bitcoin went 4x during that same period of time.
Exactly.
So it went 4x, then you add on to it another, 2.5x because people got excited about ICOs, and now all of a sudden you got this incredible responsibility and also this incredible payday. My understanding is you guys get 10% of the coins, correct?
Yeah, vesting over 4 years.
Vesting over 4 years.
Yeah.
So you guys will get, you and your husband or this company will get the proceeds from that.
Yes.
Which will be $20 million at this point. And if this thing goes 10x from here, it'll be $200 million. That's a little mind-blowing too.
Yep.
For a couple of years of work on this. You worked 2 or 3 years on this project. How long did you put into before this?
So we self-funded most of the operations going in. I wasn't full-time until last fall.
Oh, okay.
But we were doing this nights and weekends, and it was really
Got
like
it.
our passion project.
So a 9-month project turns into a $20 million payday. It's pretty surreal, isn't it?
Pretty good return, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it could go, in all honesty, it could go to 10 cents on the dollar and it could be $2 million. You don't know.
I mean, this is an extraordinarily experimental piece of technology and a very immature marketplace. So it's it's hard to determine what's good
It's interesting
or bad.
that you guys did a 4-year vest. Was that part of why people felt comfortable with investing into this, you think?
I think the vesting helped. I think it also helped that we actually had a product. So we had a working AlphaNet since February of this past year. And I think that that's a good signal that it's not just like,
And VCs would have never funded this, or they would have funded it at a very low level?
I really didn't have any trouble. We did a small pre-sale round. Essentially, my husband and I were like very liquid, and we didn't want to throw even more money in.
Yeah.
It really did not make any financial sense. And so what we wound up doing was we gave tokens at a discount to some people, many of whom were like internet entrepreneurs who I thought were also very good advisors.
Got it.
And that really wasn't hard at all. So I think the idea really resonated with a bunch of people. I think that the success, it's still like very nascent to call this whole area a success, but certainly like the narrative and what we saw with Ethereum helped out with the pitch.
Hey, here's the cynical question. Can those 3 guys who took the 90% of the money, could they just chop it up 3 ways and call it a day?
If they were to do that, they would have to answer to the Swiss nonprofit authorities who would say that does not seem to be a good use of funds by these metrics. Hence, the actual goal or the mission statement of the foundation is actually very important. It determines.
All right, so here comes the next question about this, because people are really, it's interesting. Whenever you see great success and unexpected success like this, the knives come out and people have really hard questions. How do you treat the coins you get? Is that income for you, or are they some kind of long-term stock? And who bought the 232 million? Were they accredited investors, non-accredited investors? Were they just anonymous Bitcoin wallets buying these things? How do you know who invested? And then how do you treat the coins you're getting? Is that equity, or are there just some weird holdings when we get back on This Week in Startups? Hey, everybody, let me take a moment to tell you about the awesome Squarespace. I use Squarespace all the time. I think I've created a half dozen websites this year alone. Launch Angel Summit, Founder.University, Angel.University. Every one of our websites we put onto Squarespace here at launch, and we love it. It costs us $10, $20 a month to have an amazing, gorgeous website, and they will even give you a free domain name if you start up for a year. So start your free trial today. No credit card is required. You get a free domain name if you sign up for a year. And if you decide to sign up for Squarespace after the trial, use the promo code TWIST and you will get 10% off your first purchase. You will have a professionally designed website. You can pick from all these amazing, beautiful templates, and it works everywhere, on mobile, on your desktop, on a wide monitor, on a small monitor, on an iPad, on an iPhone, Android. It doesn't matter what you're using. It will look beautiful. State-of-the-art tech, secure and stable. It can withstand massive amounts of traffic when you go viral, and it's trusted by millions, including some of the most respected brands in the world. I am a huge fan of Squarespace. Thank you to Squarespace, and make sure you use that promo code TWIST. So we do it with our in-house creative and our content staff, not by hiring expensive developers. Thanks to my friends at Squarespace. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. My amazing guest, Kathleen Breitman, is here from Tezos, which, let me tell you, a lot of people are jelly. A lot of people are jelly of your success. This is surreal to raise $232 million in a couple of weeks for the highest ICO, internet coin offering in the world, out of Zug. We've learned that. And it's a new coin. It's a new cryptocurrency. It's a new token. It will be trading probably in December. And 91% of the proceeds from this $232 million did not go into Kathleen and her husband's company. They went into a nonprofit that's going to, in Zug, maintain the goal or the mission statement of Tezos.
Yep.
Lest people are confused who didn't take $232 million and run off with it.
No.
You did get $23 million in coins that'll be vested over 4 years. So my first question, how does because you're American, I think, you live here in America, you're a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
Okay, how does that work? When you start receiving those, are those like receiving equity in something, or are they considered a taxable event? Is that compensation for you? How do you look at those?
It's a taxable event.
It's a taxable event. So as you get your coins, you're going to just have to tell the IRS, I got these coins, they have this value, I'm going to pay tax on them.
Yep.
Or when you sell them or whatever.
Yep.
Got it. So that's, to me, seems to be the thing that's some people have been hung up on, and the SEC has made that clear now. If you receive these things, they're compensation. Or they could be compensation. You got to pay tax on them.
You should always pay your taxes. And
Agreed.
If there's any ambiguity whatsoever, you should consult a tax attorney.
And yeah, just pay. So if we've learned anything this episode, it's pay your taxes. Okay, so now on to the next part. Who participated in this? Where did the money come from? And how much do you know about them? Because this is the big fear amongst this currency. I wrote about Bitcoin years ago, and this is the most dangerous thing I've ever seen, because money and value can flow from semi-anonymously. We all know anonymity is a bit of a illusion on the internet, but it could be semi-anonymous, sort of, or quasi-anonymous. Who bought these tokens? What was the largest block bought? Did somebody buy $50 million or $1 million worth? Or was this just a bunch of kids with Bitcoin, buying some, speculating? Who bought these coins?
So it's a little hard to trace like exact profiles of things. So basically, the piece of software that was run during the fundraiser allowed you to make a wallet, a Tezos wallet, and then you could send Bitcoin to that wallet or Ethereum to that wallet. Now, you could either have one wallet and then send all of your contributions there, or you can make multiple wallets and send your contributions. So it's hard to say. Sure. It's hard to determine, the exact number, but there are 30,000 wallets created, which I think is fantastic.
30,000 wallets?
Yes.
So if each one... Yeah, I'll do the math real quick here. It says people bought on average, is it about $8,000 or something? We'll have to.
So the average contribution was actually a bit lower. It was more like in the $1,000 range if you price out the Bitcoin value.
Okay, yeah, 6,000. Well, if it's 200 million divided by 30,000 is $6,000.
Right.
So
yes, I'm saying like aside from like the big blocks that we
yeah. So there were some big blocks. Tell me about the big blocks.
Yeah, I think there was one contribution that was like $8 million. That was the largest single one.
Maybe Tim Draper. Who knows? He was an early investor.
I could ask him.
But you don't know who these people are who bought it.
Yeah, no, I certainly know our largest contributors.
Okay.
Most of them are people who are intimately aware of the space and have been very successful in other areas. Yeah, other ones. There was actually the largest individual contributor had been basically mulling over Bitcoin for a while, and then I gave him my pitch for Tezos, and he was like, "Oh, that makes perfect sense." And he just was super excited. And I met him like literally 2 weeks before the fundraiser. So that was just really random. In general, like we have I would say a knowledge of the top 10 largest contributors because they either reached out to us or we had known them prior because they're just.
But here in the United States, if you were to take investors from the U.S., they would have to be accredited and you'd have to clear all that. So what happens in Zug and how does that work?
So to be crystal clear, like this wasn't an equity round, right? Like it was not there. We were very specific about what you could expect from the foundation in terms of what legal obligations there were on their side. And so I think...
Oh, right, because they're contributions. People are contributing to the nonprofit.
Yes, it was not an investment in the sense that there was no...
Got it.
So
if an American were to buy it, they would be donating. They're making a contribution to the project. They're not actually investing in a company. Therefore, it's not a stock sale.
Yeah, I think the ICO fad or name is like kind of a misnomer and in fact very misleading. I think that there's a lot of... Well, I think that there are a number of different attitudes towards the ICO phenomenon that are extraordinarily unhealthy.
What are they?
Well, to point out a few, I think that having a cap on contributions have basically turned a lot of these ICOs into a lottery. And the irony, of course, is that people think that that's more fair because there's like they're underpricing the tokens essentially, and they're not letting a market force determine it, so people can expect like a large return afterwards.
Yeah.
Now, what's funny is like most people think that that's like really much more fair to people who are participating, but in fact, most of these are claimed far before their ICO is released, and it's mostly insiders who are dominating those pools.
Got it.
So I think that's unhealthy for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, there's no technical due diligence on some of these projects because they know that it's just like a lottery system. And, if I get in, then that's good enough. And they don't think about the long-term viability of the project. We had remarkably few technical criticisms of Tezos during the fundraiser period. It was mostly like people looking at the like ICO parameters and criticizing us from that perspective because we didn't choose to to put a cap on that was effectively distorting the market.
Got it. Interesting. Okay, so...
And in tandem with that, like the whole notion of having like, an ICO, which sounds like an IPO, sort of leads into this this other attitude where people act as though there's some sort of obligation that doesn't necessarily exist with these structures. And I think that that's very poisonous because investors, accredited investors, act a certain way, and they take certain precautions, and that's not something that everyone has learned.
Right. Yeah, the accredited, non-accredited is a moving target here in the United States. The SEC has been rethinking the offering of securities to non-accredited investors. In fact, the Jobs Act, which came out, I think it was a couple years ago, but it's just been executed on, and now you can do equity crowdfunding with non-accredited investors. It's just a little bit of work or a lot of work.
Indiegogo's been like at the forefront of that, and they're doing some really interesting stuff.
Who has?
Indiegogo.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, they're going to start doing this,
Yep.
in a major way. Okay, some questions. How does this ICO add to the real valuation of startups, or how does it affect the startup in the long term? So you have a company. What was the name of your company again?
Dynamic Ledger Solutions, the most boring sounding company in the world.
No problem. So DLS is your company that you own.
I own it with my husband.
With your husband.
And we sold some shares to Tim.
To Tim Draper.
Yep.
So Tim Draper is your investor, great investor, congratulations. That company is going to receive you guys got 10% of the tokens?
10% of the tokens vesting over 4 years and 8.5% of the cash.
So you'll get 8.5% of the cash too. So you're going to get $17 million bucks.
Once the network launches and is operational for 3 months.
Wow.
So you have to deliver a product.
You have to deliver a product. But people knew this coming in, that you would get that. whatever it is, payment of the cash, the 10%.
I was extraordinarily explicit, and many people told me that that's why they did not contribute, and I'm okay with that outcome.
Right. But enough people did that for a year of work, you're going to get paid that $17 million. That's where people, I guess, so getting 10% of the tokens is one thing because you rise and fall with everybody else, but getting that payment, speak to that payment. What is that? That's like just a service fee for having created the platform for your company, DLS?
Well, I would say it's something for shipping an operational new instantiation of a blockchain, which is very technically ambitious and well executed.
Yeah. And like I said before, like nobody expected it to go 4x and then 2x and all this hype. It would have probably been 10% of that 1.7 million, which then nobody would be up in arms or just critical of it. Because there's been some criticism. What are your thoughts on the criticism of like, oh my God, this is a crazy payday or an unjustified payday? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I worked really hard on this, and like I didn't expect this to be as large as it was.
Yeah.
It was an extraordinarily large stroke of luck. Timing is everything. When the white paper for Tezos was released in 2014, no one gave a damn.
Yeah.
And my husband and I persevered through, and we really had a lot of conviction in our idea. And we're, very fortunate that the market timing worked out so that we have this massive, pool of capital to reinvest in Tezos. And I think putting 91% of it back into the operation system is completely reasonable. But in the meantime, I did a lot of sweat, tears, and blood, and put a lot of my savings in, and I think that I feel extraordinarily lucky that people resonated with the message. But like it was a really good idea, and we worked really hard on it. So
yeah, I think it's a pretty reasonable explanation. What people forget about startups and creating things like this is that there can be unexpected large returns that are hard for people to understand. But when you put $100,000 into something or a couple of years of your life, which is an opportunity cost because you only get so many of those years, and you create something extraordinary, it's very hard for people to understand that Zuckerberg now has $50 billion, let's say, a magnitude more than you got for doing Tezos. And we're sitting here going, does he deserve $50 billion or not? It's a capitalism has a very unique aspect to it, which is if things work, they can work really well.
I understand the visceral reaction because the sense of, we're basically, monkeys at the end of the day. And like we have very strong premonitions of fairness and what's fair and what's not.
Yeah, it's a lot of bananas.
And basically. And so, I get it. I get that people can be angry.
Yeah. Haters, we call them haters in the business.
These were the terms long before we kind of had a sense of whether it be 10 million or 200. And I'm, very lucky that we did a great job of getting the word out and crafting a narrative that resonated with people.
So another question from a fan, how is this going to be liquefied or become actual currency? How will people who have Tezos, your coins, other people who bought coins, how will they be able to liquidate them and get cash if they want to?
So exchanges will typically list these tokens, and there are many pairings. Mm-hmm. So
what are the top exchanges? Because that seems to be a point of contention. And do you have to approve which ones? Because you have a unique foundation. Do you have to prove who will be able to clear market and make them into cash?
Can you do that? It's an open source ecosystem, so really, it's not exactly
possible.
Like that. Yeah, it's not like, am I going to list on the ASX or something like that? It's more like, there's many different exchanges. Some of them are a little bit more conservative with what they list and what they don't. Coinbase, which is located in San Francisco, has I think like 8 million customers or something like that.
Yeah, they got hacked too pretty bad. What do you think about that?
Coinbase?
Yeah, wasn't Coinbase the one that got hacked? Or they hacked Verizon to get people's wallets?
Yes.
And Coinbase basically didn't have enough, customer support in place or whatever the criticisms are.
It's really, these things are digital bearer assets. They're extremely hard to secure. Like the operational security on the Tezos fundraiser was mind-bogglingly complex. Because there was a strong incentive for someone to like redirect, all of our web pages and just screw up with their little algorithm that created wallets and Bitcoin addresses for contributions. It's a very thankless and terrible displeasure to have to program around these unless you're a really security-minded person. So it's extraordinarily difficult. I think Coinbase is the most popular exchange. That's that you always see it on CNBC and whenever people tell you about Bitcoin.
How do you keep your coins? How do you keep your coins secure? How does one?
Yeah, so I use a ledger, which is a really fantastic piece of hardware. It's actually made by a company in the Bay Area with other French engineers, and
a ledger is a hardware device.
yes, it looks like a little bit like a USB stick, and it does a really great job of securing the.
So it's like a wallet.
Yeah, it's a wallet, but it's got a hardware component to it, and it has like a really great security setup.
I'm looking at it right now. Look at that.
It's really elegant looking too. Yes.
So you plug that into your USB port. It locks all your stuff down until you trade it, and you need to put your fingerprint on it or something. You need to physically have it.
You need to, press your code in.
Yeah.
And it's got like this really cool mechanism for, if you type in the wrong code, like it'll say, no, you can't access this anymore, and you have to like do a reboot from another system. Yeah.
Cool.
So if you lose it like in a bar or something, you don't necessarily have to worry about someone stealing all your funds, because they would need access to this code. And if they punch in a certain number of times, they need to have recourse elsewhere.
Got it. And then where do you collect it? If you lose it, you can get another one from the company or something.
Yeah, you can program another one. Yeah,
pretty easily.
Yeah. It's a really elegant piece of software and hardware.
What happened with this DAO? The DAO was the first contract where like everybody was going to be a venture capitalist. People donated all their coins, and then somebody hacked it through smart contracts. So let's start with explaining what a smart contract is. And what is a use case for a smart contract? Then we'll get into the DAO, because we have to educate the audience a little bit. I know probably a third of the audience knows exactly what a smart contract is, but bear with us. What is a smart contract? Why are they important?
Yeah, so basically, a smart contract is a piece of computer code that can sit, it acts as a wrapper on the blockchain, and so it can give extra parameters for defining what is a valid transaction and what is not. So you can say I'm going to trade, tokens with Joe, but only if it's on a Wednesday at 3 p.m. or something like that. So you can add extra layers of specificity and business logic into any given transaction with tokens using a smart contract. Got it.
What's an example of a smart contract that somebody's used Ethereum or another platform for that is a shining example of this is why smart contracts are brilliant?
Escrow services are probably the most popular application. Third-party escrow services are what fuels the global equity trading economy, essentially. Repo loans are what a lot of people use to buy equities on a day-to-day basis. And that's essentially just having an escrow service. And instead of having Bank of New York Mellon just park your assets and then just giving them back, you could programmatically define, a time limit or a series of conditions that allow you to release the funds at a certain point in the future.
So if I said, hey, I'm going to sell you this domain name, I could say in my contract, if the domain registrar GoDaddy shows you as the owner, then ship this money to me, but if it doesn't happen, don't ship it, and the money the coins sit in some third-party service for some period of time.
Well, it's a piece of computer code, yeah. So, so basically just...
Oh, right. It's not sitting somewhere. They're sitting in code.
Yeah.
We both agreed to it.
Yep.
When it happens, then it fires off the send.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's a big use case.
What about the DAO? Because the DAO was this brilliant idea. Everybody's going to give a bunch of money. Then everybody's going to vote on who gets the money.
Yes.
And then they hacked it and voted for themselves or something. What exactly happened?
So basically, the DAO advertised itself as a decentralized venture capital group, and it was trying to programmatically define what a VC does by making contributions to this smart contract, and then they would manage it with the will of the people, if you will. And this is an extraordinarily ambitious objective.
It's incredibly stupid, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and so...
Because you know what? Not everybody's a great fund manager. Voting on where to invest your money, you need to have a small group of people doing that who are knowledgeable.
Well, they had curators that would be like, oh, well, this is a good project. And so...
I like the ambitiousness of it.
Yeah, but there were some very incoherent parts about how do you get cash out, and can you participate in something? It was the corporate structure alone was a little bit poorly thought out. Yeah. But point being, they had $150 million worth of Ethereum pledged to this contract that would represent the DAO. The contract was extraordinarily ambitious in scope, and inevitably, a clever hacker found a discrepancy in it and was able to give themselves siphon off parts of the fund and to the tune of about $50 million.
And they never caught the person or reversed it because they would have had to do something and reverse Ethereum or something to do it.
Yeah, so what happened was, essentially Ethereum was like, oh, wow, that was a substantial amount of Ethereum that was stolen from this extraordinarily popular project, and they basically called a mulligan, and they unwound the transaction.
Wow.
And they proceeded on the chain as though it had not occurred.
So this is Ethereum. Is there a nonprofit that runs Ethereum too? Or?
Yes, there is the Ethereum Foundation.
Got it. So the Ethereum Foundation did that.
So it wasn't necessarily the Ethereum Foundation, but it was certainly the core people associated with Ethereum. And so what happened was there was a split, as there was with Bitcoin most recently, and that's how we got this project called Aetherium Classic, which essentially was no, we will accept that there was this much, Ethereum siphoned off, and we will move forward with that operating.
All right. So now we come to the part of the program where you give me free consulting because you're super smart. Oh, I have one more question for you about what you're doing, and then you're going to give me some free consulting and advice. So what's next for DLS? You guys made $17 million in fees, and then you get $20 million in the coin, so that's a lot of money, and it's just 3 shareholders. What are you going to do? Shut it down and retire, or you have other plans? Are you going to do another coin, or are you going to...
I have every intention of helping grow out the ecosystem. I have a lot of really...
The Tezos ecosystem.
Yes.
You'll keep working on that.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's my baby. I'm not going to abandon it.
Yeah. So you can keep building things for it. You could build your own trading platform for it or something.
Yeah, I could do all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah. What's on the list?
There's some cool use cases that I'm exploring. There's some cool things with prediction markets, for example, that I think
I love those.
Haven't been done super elegantly in some other systems. So we're trying to think about new and low-hanging fruit from a use case perspective. That being one very easy example.
I love the idea of prediction markets gambling. There was what was it called not Indeed. There was one in the UK that was so much fun because you could essentially gamble. You could bet on who was going to be president. So when you were watching Obama, it wasn't InTrade, it was something, maybe it was InTrade. What was the prediction market that went out of business that was super famous? God.
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie, look for prediction markets.
My friend Maxim runs an aggregator for prediction markets that I really like looking at.
Oh, really? What's it called? PredictWise, PredictIt?
No, it's a...
Prediction market, I like that.
Yeah, he runs with John Stossel. Oh, geez.
God, we'll find it. But it was really interesting to look at those prediction markets in the wake of the election because, InTrade was the one that was famous, but I think it got shut down.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right here. Founded in Dublin and Ireland, InTrade gained widespread media attention as the world's leading prediction market during 2008 and 2012 election cycles. Interesting. That's
electionbettingodds.com is the name of Maxim's.
Really?
Site.
Election betting odds. I love it.
Yeah.
They're illegal in the United States, but they're legal almost everywhere else.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yep.
That's a brilliant one to work on because you could do a smart contract each time people...
You could do all sorts of fun stuff.
Explain. Give me an example.
Just aside from being able to get the sort of discovery of what people think, you could use the smart contract logic to really underpin a lot of the things that bookmakers would do.
So brilliant.
Yeah.
My God. But you're not raising any money for your company.
No need.
You need a board member? I'm a really good board member. Trust me. How do I get a point in this? Maybe I could be a board member or something. Don't you need somebody on there who's got a great experience? Anyway, put that aside for a second. I've been getting pitched by a lot of people who I don't really know.
Okay.
I'm a famous angel investor. I've hit 6 unicorns in my first 100 investments.
That's a pretty good rate.
It's a pretty good rate.
Yeah. I'll take that.
Yeah, it's okay.
You want in on my
company. I want to keep investing.
Yeah.
So obviously people have come to me and said, hey, let's do an ICO for you and your investments. And then I see Science is going to do an ICO or something, Science the Incubator in LA. I know my friend Brock Pierce raised $10 million in some sort of...
Blockchain capital.
Blockchain capital. He's a smart cat, but he doesn't have the track record I have. I could probably raise, if I'm raising from LPs and professionals, I can raise as much money as I want.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking about is, what if I raised a fund in Zug that was Jason is going to show all the investments he makes. Mm-hmm. So here's Jason's full 30 or 40 investments a year that I make with my fund and my capital.
Yep.
Of those 30 to 40, then we will create tokens for those 40 a year, let's say I do. And those people will be able to invest, or those tokens will be invested into these group of companies each year.
Right.
At their next funding round, we'll offer those CEOs the ability to take from this J coin, I'll call it for now, Jason coin, J coin, and just it'll be invested automatically in whatever I invest in with my fund. So it's sort of like a carry-on fund that's open to my founders. If they want to tap it, they can. If they don't, and it doesn't need to really be a big smart contract. The contract is if Jason invested, it's somewhat pre-vetted.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
It sounds like you're delving into securities territory.
It is securities.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be securities.
Yeah. So best to try to comply.
What about Zug? Would in Zug would they do that kind of stuff or no?
Oh, I mean, I had a much different structure.
Right.
When I was looking at this,
Yeah.
and my the blockchain that we were deploying looked a lot different than that. So it's really hard to say. With Tezos, it was very straightforward that this was the logical way to distribute the token and manage it from now on. I think if I were doing something that was a securities play, I would really not want to deal with this at all. It seems like a lot of effort.
Wait a second.
It's very much a gray area.
What if it was a donation like you did, and then the coin's traded freely later, but the donation then would go back into continuing to invest in startups. So the foundation, let's say the foundation raised 100, did half of what you did, the foundation would then receive the money and keep investing it, and me as the fund manager who created it would just get 20% of that.
So
I would get in a normal fund.
I'm not
bizarre.
an attorney, but I think just calling it a donation, but then representing a security doesn't evade.
Doesn't matter.
That does not, functionally that would not be a very sage way to sidestep securities.
What amount of the money invested do you think was non-U.S.? I'm curious.
It's really hard to say.
Majority?
Probably.
Probably the majority, yeah. That's what I'm sort of interested in, too. Do you have to know who the people were because it was a donation, or you don't?
So we didn't do any AML KYC on the contributions.
KYC is
know your customer, anti-money laundering laws. So if you were to do a securities offering in the U.S., you would need to vet the people who were purchasing this. And indeed, I think that's what the CoinList project, which is out of AngelList, or it's like Naval Ravikant's project, is doing an effort to facilitate that.
He's doing an effort to do coins.
To do some sort of ICO platform.
Got it, yeah.
That incorporates this accreditation aspect.
Got it. Yeah, that's what he's going to do. It's a coin list. He's doing. I guess it's part of AngelList. That's interesting. Maybe I'll talk to Naval about.
Yeah, no, he's much more. He has different opinions probably, or more informed about things that I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super informed on the accredited investor. We obviously, when we do our syndicates,
right,
we only do accredited, and we've got, I don't know, close to 2,000 of them now on jasonsyndicate.com.
Yeah, so, I'm not an attorney, and it's not really my place to opine on these things, but certainly I would not recommend doing that structure if you're going to issue a security.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, here we go. Final question. You call yourself a crypto anarchist, is that correct? I have in my show notes here.
Functionally,
Crypto
yes.
anarchist.
Yes.
What does it mean to be a crypto anarchist? I know what anarchist means. The Joker in Batman is an anarchist, right?
I mean, not the best representation of it, but yeah, it's not very
I think those people in Berkeley beating up the Nazis consider themselves anarchists. Yeah. What does it mean to be a crypto anarchist? Because that's an important qualifier.
Yeah.
So you're not the Joker. You're not a Berkeley Antifa.
Yeah, I don't believe in violence broadly construed.
Right.
And so basically, the cypherpunk movement essentially tries to, which is comprised of many crypto anarchists, is largely focused on preserving people's property, broadly construed, and their privacy, broadly construed, using the internet and the wonderful mathematical science of applied cryptography in order to preserve those rights.
Got it. So privacy is one.
Privacy is a very strong component of this.
And owning your own, and sovereignty in a way. Like, you own what you own. People can't take it from you.
Yeah, it's a very, anarchists tend to have a focus on like private rights for the individual, and not believing in large entities being able to like conscript you into war, for example, and things like that against other folks. So it's an emphasis on like personal responsibility and private rights.
What do you think the impact of cryptocurrency will be on war, the globe, dictatorships, and institutions like America and China?
I like the irreverence of it. I like that basically it's a global exit.
A global exit. What does that mean?
Well, like Balaji Srinivasan talks about this very eloquently, but essentially like you can carry, so historically, like when the Jews were being purged throughout all of Europe, you'd have to like basically carry your trade in your head, which is why you got like a tradition of having doctors and attorneys and things like that.
Right.
Tools that are like up here.
Can't be taken from you.
Can't be taken from you. When you see folks who are like fleeing war-torn areas and whatnot, you see them like trying to bundle all of their valuables, so on and so forth, because they can't keep their wealth in their head.
Right.
With
best case, they can put some diamonds and hide them on their person.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation, especially in like places like Syria right now.
Yeah.
My good friend is from New York, is like a North Korean refugee. Like when she left North Korea, she couldn't bring any possessions, and so she had to start anew elsewhere.
Wow.
Which is just a mortifying prospect, right?
Sure.
And I like the idea of like being able to keep like a code in your head that allows you to access like you're a piece of a global network.
So you remember your 30 keywords in order, and you can unlock your store anywhere. What is it for Bitcoin? Is it like 30 or 60 words or something? What is it?
Well, it depends on what sort of solution you're using.
Got it.
So, like, certainly with my ledger, I have a PIN, and then I've got like a mnemonic. Yeah, it's like different for everyone, obviously, depending upon how they store their Bitcoins and whatnot. But I like the idea of something that you can access globally without having to tap into.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, if I put I put 90% of my net worth into a store somewhere across all the 25 different leading cryptos and coins or whatever, hopefully it balances out over time or keeps up with inflation. If any one of them goes out, it's 4% of your holdings. But then you can literally say the 20 words that you have in your secret icebox and unload it anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's a very powerful prospect.
You used to bury your diamonds.
Yes.
Pirates used to just bury. If it was back to pirates would not have to carry their gold and bury it on beaches.
Right. Though, yeah, there would be some other complications. In any case.
So some men just want to watch the world burn. Does not apply to you. You actually want to see people be more free.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of human freedom, broadly construed.
I like it. It reminds me of the early days of the internet. We really had the sense in the early 90s that the internet would be a net positive for humanity. And it seems to have been, except for the walled gardens that are now trying to choke us and track us like Facebook and Google to a level that is truly scary.
Yeah, there's a big project. There's two big projects in the blockchain space right now that are kind of trying to have they're trying to be competitors in some sense to like the AWSs of the world.
Really?
By doing like data storage, for example. So
Filecoin.
Filecoin, exactly.
Yeah, so Filecoin is going to take my extra storage and put it in the cloud. Anybody can store whatever they want encrypted.
Yep.
I had an investment called Space Monkey that did exactly that with a little hardware device. They would give you a terabyte drive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
You would get 500 gig, and then they would give 500 gig to anybody in the cloud, and you would all be stored on each other's.
Oh, it's a cool system.
It was pretty cool, and they sold it as a hardware device because it felt like people were just not savvy enough to install it as software. But
that sounds about right.
Filecoin's going to be software.
Yep. Yeah, so you already see like they put Turkish Wikipedia was censored, and they made like they posted it onto the Filecoin network, and I thought that was like a cool.
Will they have their own HTTP or something to see it, or is it just going to resolve like anything else?
I'm not terribly certain as to like what the structure is right now. I've kind of been focused on the Tezos stuff, so I'm not terribly sure what it's going to look like in its final iteration. But I've seen some of like I know Juan, and I've seen some of the work that he's been doing, and it's very elegantly done and very well constructed.
Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie. Let's book Filecoin. We got to get Filecoin on the program. Also,
yeah, one is brilliant.
I need to go to Switzerland, so translate. I need to get my book to Switzerland. I need to do a book tour and stop by Zug.
Zug is a great place.
Have you been there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what's it like?
It's beautiful.
Here's my other idea. Facebook has all of our information.
Yes.
I don't trust them all that much. They haven't proven to be super trustworthy with our information. And that's why they got a 20-year fine with the FTC. But they probably cleaned up their act since. But I just don't like the idea of it.
Okay.
Here's my idea.
Okay.
You tell me if I'm crazy. A Facebook or Twitter, whatever your social network, but make it look like Facebook so it's easy to use. And everybody who joins gets a coin.
Okay.
Or whatever, 10,000 coins. Every time you like something or post, it costs you, or you give a coin, but so small that it's de minimis. Like a Satoshi kind of, I guess, at this point. It's worth, I don't know how much, but fractions of pennies.
Yeah.
Then the company reserves whatever number of coins. Hopefully they have some value at some point to run the operation.
Is that so? That's your pitch?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't generally like the idea of sort of extracting a rent on something that's could arguably just be forked, like if it's an open source project and done for free.
Right.
I don't think there's a very good prospect for projects like that.
Well, the only problem is, in order to do something like Facebook at scale and to keep up with them, you really need a lot of resources.
Yeah.
A lot. Like you need 500 developers or 100. It's like the Mozilla Foundation, right? The Mozilla Foundation did this deal with Google to be like, have them be the default search, and they started making tens of millions of dollars a year to employ all the Mozilla people.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a tough problem. And like I think the main issue is that people don't tend to care that Facebook, if the services for you are the product, people don't seem to value private versions of or decentralized versions of this.
Or maybe if it had ads, no ads. But people don't care about the ads either.
Yeah,
you know what? People just don't care. People are stupid.
I mean, people care about things that are immediately impactful to them. I think that if Facebook was like bundling and repackaging like all your baby photos and selling them on an open market and doing something very explicitly, obviously terrible, I think you'd get a lot of pushback. But as it stands, like I don't think people terribly care that they're selling all your data and you get better targeted ads or something like that as a result.
Correct. Kathleen, you're right. They don't care about privacy until it's been
As someone who deeply cares about privacy.
It's so frustrating, isn't it?
I can attest to the fact that, yes, I do seem like a crazy person to most of my friends.
It's nuts. You know when they'll care? When the shit gets flipped and they see it, their information exposed, and people are like, by the way, these hackers now have every single website you've ever visited, how many seconds you spent on every page, and you have nothing because you don't use a VPN or any kind of point-to-point encryption.
Well, it's funny because like my mother is, 30 years older than me, and she has much better InfoSec habits and intuitions than most of the people who are in my generation. So I think it's also like we grew up with the internet and we just don't think twice about it. We just inherently like kind of trust it, and that's kind of a silly like lull that most people have had.
It's a huge mistake. People have no idea how much is compromised. Like, if they knew that their router has every web page they visited in, their location is being stored by Apple on their phone and in Google in the cloud, like every place you visit, every moment is being tracked.
I think most people just don't know how the internet works, and that's kind of an issue.
All right, listen, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Continued success.
Thank you.
I don't know why people are I do know why people are a little bit jelly of you. It's because you're smart and you did something innovative, and it's probably going to be wildly successful. And you know what? The world needs more people like you.
Thank you.
And if you made a little bit of cheddar along the way, and if it's hard for people to understand that, like, the monkey that pulls the right lever gets more bananas than the monkey who doesn't pull levers, well, whatever. We're all monkeys. Great. I love that expression. Like, just go pull some levers. If you're sitting here at home going, why did she figure this out? Then ask yourself, well, what work did you do today? You worked whatever number of hours per day relentlessly to see this vision happen.
Well, I think, there is a component of luck that I don't dismiss as being a factor. But I think it's a great idea. I believe in what I do very much. And so I'm very proud of the way I organize this company and the way that we're moving forward.
I'll leave you with one piece of advice. With great power comes great responsibility. I don't know if you've seen Spider-Man, but now that you've made that money, you'll have to be on your game and spend it wisely. So remember, don't go buy a Cadillac and a fur coat.
Well, we are basically going to have produced a working new instantiation of a blockchain for, I think the total cost will come up to like less than $2.5 million. So we're a very lean organization for many, many years. And I think if we can preserve that attitude and that ethos, I think, will be just fine in the future.
As they say in Scarface, never get high on your own supply. Like, I have to remind myself, like, I'm always like, you know what? I may have hit 6 unicorns. I'm going to be judged on every investment I do. Like, literally every one of my LPs, the people in my syndicate, the people on my team. It's like every next investment is what you're judged on.
Yeah.
Your track record means nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's part of the stuff that is very unpleasant about this for me, is like just putting yourself out there and being very much in the public view. Everyone's a critic, but yeah.
You know what? I'll give you another movie reference. You ever see Ratatouille?
Of course.
You know Anton Ego at the end?
Yes.
And he says the life of a critic is pretty meaningless in the grand scheme of things because we don't create anything. And the one thing we can do in our lives as critics is to support the new. In this, speech, you are the new. And what you're doing could create more justice and more fairness in the world. And I think this crypto stuff is going to be this underlying infection to dictatorships, and people who mess with currencies are going to have their bells rung because people are going to opt out of their system. If all the people in China start buying crypto, which a lot of them are doing, and getting out of the renminbi, it's going to make the government more responsive because they will lose their tax base and they're going to lose that money being in bank accounts.
Well, I think, there's something to be said for the fact that, there's a monopoly on force that's, largely owned by governments, and there's something to be said for something that provides an alternative, whether it's through financial freedom or some other form. And so it's really cool to see the way this plans out. I think like blockchain technology, part of the reason it's all the rage is because once people start to learn more about it, they get really inspired and their mind goes and races in many different places. And I think that's awesome. I think that's part of the reason I really don't mind talking about this all day, is because everyone has a different reaction and some other part of the message that resonates with them. And it's interesting to see how people react to this.
Yeah, people are reacting to it like anything new by shitting their pants, being haters, and then eventually being advocates. It's just the way it works. Like when the internet came out, people are like, oh my God, everybody's stealing everything. Oh my God, there's gonna, it's gonna be all this disastrous stuff. And it turns out, net, it's been pretty fucking great, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like the internet's worked out pretty great for society. Like all the information in the world is now available to everybody for free.
Yep.
Like if you want to learn a skill and you're in Bangladesh or you're in Boise, Idaho, or you're in Brooklyn, you can get the same lynda.com free videos from Treehouse or Lynda or YouTube or Khan Academy. That's available to everybody on YouTube for free.
Yeah.
Globally. I mean, unless there's some firewall up in your country, in which case it's a dictator's fault, not the internet's.
Human freedom is a wonderful thing.
So you're in Brooklyn. You spend a lot of time here?
I live in the South Bay.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
All right. Well, Kathleen, I'd like you and I to become friends, mainly because I feel like you're going to make me smarter, and there's some huge opportunity I'm missing here. So I need to be mentored on this. This is like one of the few times in my life where I need a mentor.
Wonderful. Happy to keep up the conversation.
All right. I'll pick up the check, and then you provide the IQ points for me. Thanks again to Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie. She does a great job. If you have an idea for a guest, she's already had it, so don't bother emailing her. She's smarter than you. She's got 4 Emmys, you don't. I don't. No, seriously. If you have a great idea, you can find her on the Twitter, or you can find her Jackie at launch.co. I don't make the decisions who's on the program. Jackie makes the decisions. We talk about it sometimes, but she really is the brains behind the operation here. Thanks, Jake, for making a flawless episode. Keep leveling up. Thanks to my Chief of Staff, Ashley, Luke, everybody doing a great job. If you haven't bought the book, it's called angelthebook.com. And if you write a review about it, email me, jason@calacanis.com, and I will reply back to you and give you a high five and thank you for writing a kind review. But please read the book if you're thinking about angel investing. You want to know how the business works. And we'll see you. Oh, yeah. And you want to monitor this Tezos thing. It's going to be big. It's already big. And it hasn't even launched yet, so I can't imagine how big it'll get. But I have a feeling you're super confident, Kathleen. So
I have some super cool stuff up my sleeve.
Good. And they can follow you, Bright Woman,
Yes.
BREIT Woman. This is great. You're CEO of a $250 million company.
Yes.
It's
not that. Well, so to be clear, like it's a project that has garnered this much attention.
Whatever.
Really cool.
I would value it at 10 times whatever it raised. So I literally think it's a unicorn.
That's very generous of you.
Well, I mean, if we were looking at it and there were this amount of proceeds and this kind of thing, it's the whole ecosystem, in a way you are the CEO of a unicorn in my mind.
Oh, well, that's really cool. Thank you.
Okay. And how do people follow you guys to get more information and participate?
Yeah.
Just Tezos.com. Is there an email list?
There is an email list.
Is that the best, or is there an IRC channel that's better, or a Slack channel? Or
yes. So we're on Riot, which is like a messaging service. We use Slack, but then Slack
Riot
was hacked.
is a messaging service.
Riot.
R-I-O-T?
R-I-T.
Yeah.
Yeah, Riot. Oh, sorry.
Riot, yeah. I never heard of that. What is it, like an open source thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not terribly active on it, but my husband engages a lot with people interested in the project and the technical
Open team
discussions.
collaboration. There you go.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
IM. Oh, were they like a Slack competitor?
I mean, I don't think they're trying to address the same marketplace. Slack had a security vulnerability that we actually were the first people to have exploited on our Slack channel, so it's really not great for public networks. And when you address this with Slack, they were like, oh, well, it's only supposed to be used by people who trust each other. And
I know this. I had the same one, which was the directory is open.
Yes.
And somebody went in and took every email and started spamming everybody.
With us, it was like, I think the administrative account was like overridden. And so someone directly messaged everyone. So that was very problematic. And it could have been a disaster had we not communicated so directly about where you could access the fundraiser page. So luckily, very rigorous and annoying communication saved our butts on that one.
Yeah.
Slack is really not very great for public forums. Riot, I think, satisfied a bunch of the
you know what their answer
security.
to me was? They were their answer to me, I said, just make the directory private. Duh. Yeah. I told Stuart, and this is a message to Stuart at Slack, you have to do this. Make directory private. As it's one little option, just make it an option.
There was also a bunch of permissionings that we found to be very problematic. So someone was becoming entering the Slack every 15 minutes with a woman's name and community manager, and then DMing people down the list.
Fantastic.
Which was just terrible. There was a bunch of, this was from an operational security perspective,
Brittany.
Just the worst.
It's Brittany on the customer support team. Your password seems to be jammed.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to fix it for you. What's your password?
I'm happy that they didn't pick also vampy photos, but the general.
I mean, it's literally because I have a one name on Twitter and Instagram at Jason.
That's quite the coveted status symbol.
It's a great status symbol, but it's also a pain in the ass. I can't use notifications on some platforms because
Jason, very popular name.
People are just like, Jason, where are you? Jason, what's up? I'm like, I don't know you. And then the other problem that happens is these Russian spammers are making so many Twitter handles and so many
don't even get me started on Twitter.
handles.
Yeah, they should have CAPTCHAs for followers and stuff like that. That would eliminate half the issue. We had a problem with Tezos where someone...
A CAPTCHA for Twitter followers. If you follow, you have to hit a CAPTCHA.
Yeah, that would eliminate a lot of terribleness.
But it might slow their fake growth.
Right. My problem with Twitter was we had someone buying people to follow us, and it was 100,000 plus, and it looked like we were buying it, so I was very embarrassed. And I wound up having to call a friend who works at Twitter, and he solved the matter rather peacefully. But that I started to think about. That's the
problem with Twitter is I think that they have such growth problems that it's screwing with their ability to make wise decisions about the bad data on their network.
There's some low-hanging fruit that they could probably address.
It's I have to say, I don't mean to beat up on Jack or anything, but Twitter is such a poorly run product organization.
I think it's an excellent platform, but there's definitely some product decisions.
They're now 2 years behind, just basic blocking and tackling. How can Twitter not have a handle on spam and fake accounts and harassment and all this stuff? It's been going on for 5 fucking years. And Jack's been the CEO for 2 years. You can't get harassment or basic spammers out of the system. The amount of spam is nuts.
Yeah. No, it's really crazy.
It'd be like if Gmail had spam problems in 2017. How could Gmail doesn't have spam problems
Well, it
anymore?
wouldn't be Gmail if it had spam problems, I suspect.
Yeah, it would be Yahoo Mail. But even Yahoo Mail has got it figured out.
Yeah.
All right, listen, I could talk to you all day. You are you're smart, and I applaud your success. And for anybody who's a hater, just go out and build something. Stop hating on other people who made shit that's working in the world. That's my final message to you on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.